Hi there, how are you going? Welcome back to my channel. Today's little discussion is about adulting, being an adult, and how it doesn't come with an instruction manual. So when you're young, you're never prepared for all the things that are going to come up as an adult that you got to manage, even just on your own, but then add kids to the picture, like 4 kids, 1, 2, 3, 4 kids, and there's an added layer of responsibility because you're responsible for the lives of other people as well. So I wanted to chat about this because it's something I've been thinking about. So stick around and we'll have a little chat about the pressures of adulting and all that's involved in it. So when you're young, you're not prepared for this, and as you grow up and you take responsibility and you fly from the nest, or maybe you've had to do that from a young age depending on your family situation. I myself had to take on a lot of responsibility as a child, and then I've really thought about this and considered how much part of adulting is we're not prepared for when we're children. We don't get an instruction manual. We don't get a full picture of one day you are going to be fully responsible and the buck's going to stop with you. So, and sometimes in relationships, sometimes the dynamic isn't even. So there's not an equal partnership, and someone is taking a lot more of the adulting responsibility on for the family than the other person. So that's really important to acknowledge as well, that it's a hard task, and that if you can in a partnership create a balance between that responsibility for adulting, it's fantastic, and it alleviates a lot of stress and a lot of burden on one particular person for doing it. So some of the things that are involved in adulting is like financial management. So managing all the bills, working out how you're going to feed the mouths that you've got, that are fully dependent on you. The buck stops with you. How you're going to pay the rent or the mortgage and all the bills, and really like handling the stress of this is big. And with today's rising costs, it is intense. Like groceries are really expensive, if you've got, lack of employment or things like that, that can create extra stress. And, how to balance all those finances is a big job. It's a big mental load. The other part of adulting that you've got is like managing your own health and well-being and staying resilient, and then add kids to that picture, and you've got to manage all the appointments. So appointments, medical appointments, dental appointments. If a child gets sick, then how to help that child at all. The responsibility of that comes down to you. Another thing that can happen with adulting is decision fatigue. So just making decisions all the time, needing to be the one who makes decisions. So like deciding what to cook every day. So if it's it's all on you, it's all your mental load. You've got to think about it. You've got to execute it. You've got to, consider all this. Have you got the ingredients? Is that going to be a healthy meal? So if you are on your own, you're doing that all on your own, that creates a big burden. Or if you're with a partner and they share it, then when it's their turn to cook, they need to take responsibility for the thinking around that cooking. Like that's half the load of doing the cooking, is thinking about it. So like taking that mental load from someone and fully owning that is like planning. Okay, so it's my turn to cook. So what do I need to come up with the ideas. I need to make sure we've got enough food for it, and taking that load off the other person is actually half the job of cooking. The other things about adulting that people don't prepare you for is like really, if you've got children or if you're under stress, is like you need to regulate yourself. You need to manage the triggers, and there's going to be a lot of triggers. And when you're constantly on, so you're constantly thinking about other people apart from yourself, your needs go last. Your needs have to go, you don't have the luxury of even going to the toilet like on your own time. You don't. You have to actually rush or carry a baby or carry a child in with you. You don't have the luxury of taking a break at work like without anything. If you're the one that children are are relying on. You're constantly worried about their safety. You're on all the time. There's not a moment where you can just not think about them and just consider yourself or finish a job from the start to end without considering the safety and well-being of those who are dependent on you. That takes a lot of stress, that takes a lot of mental load, and that is also part of being a parent and adulting, is that little ones are dependent on you for their safety, and you're constantly on. So when they're with you, you are constantly on. You don't have a moment's like break to just relax into what you're doing or to do something at your own time, to finish a job from A to B, from the start to finish. You are interrupted, you're thinking about the safety, you're constantly scanning the environment to make sure that those little ones who are dependent on you are safe. And that takes a big mental load too. There's other things like the well-being of your family. So when you're an adult, it's not just your own emotional well-being. You've got to think about your children's well-being and their emotional well-being. Like if you've got multiple children, they will have different needs at different times. So teenagers will have different needs to toddlers, and it's really about balancing all those needs between all the different family members while keeping yourself emotionally resilient and strong. And that takes effort too. So all these things about adulting, are stressful, and they take a lot of effort and energy, as well as future planning, like thinking about your future, your retirement, if something should happen to you, how your family would be without you. All these things are part of adulting. Really adulting, when the buck stops with you, you've got no one else to turn to. It's your responsibility. You're an adult now. You're not a child, and you have to take full responsibility for stuff. And on top of that, people are dependent on you. So this thing called adulting, it's not easy. It doesn't come with an instruction manual. You're not fully prepared for it when you're a child, and you don't really grasp it until it's fully your responsibility to take care of all these aspects of life. And it's not easy. You drop the ball and things happen. You drop the ball and your finances could go off, and that means that everyone in the family's affected. Or, you make a mistake and you get a fine, and then you've got to try to find a way to pay that fine on top of all the other stresses that are happening in life. So some of the tips that I have for you to cope with adulting is really needing to take some time out. However you can, use your support networks around you to take some time out for yourself. Finding ways to de-stress. So whether it be through really being aware of your breath, returning to your breath as much as you possibly can. So whenever you've got a moment, you can use that moment to focus back on your breathing and really ground yourself. When you're in a really high stress environment, you've got kids screaming, multiple people at you, you're juggling all the balls, and things are all your responsibility, is really understanding that, you've got to pour love into yourself. You've got to fill your own cup. You got to acknowledge all that you're doing and say, give yourself a big pat on the back sometimes without anyone else's being doing that for you. Give yourself a big pat on the back and acknowledge what you've been doing and all the effort you've been making, and be your own coach, be your own person that says, well done on this thing, this adulting that you're doing really well, So be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, find ways to fill your own cup. Take responsibility for your own mental health and well-being. Try to find little snippets of time for moments of joy for yourself that aren't just addictions or these temporary sort of hits of dopamine. Find, fulfilling things like exercise or, drinking water, mindfulness, moments to connect with your breath, deep breathing when you feel triggered, learning about your own traumas, your own healing work that you need to do, and taking full responsibility for that so that you can be the best adult that you can be. And particularly if you've got children, you can be there for your children emotionally, physically, spiritually, all ways that you can be present for your children. Because honestly, being an adult is stress, and then adding children to the picture and adding, multiple mouths to feed, multiple people to be responsible for, who are all looking to you to be that person for them, is next level stress. So make sure you've got ways that you can de-stress, okay? Make sure you're gentle on yourself. Make sure that you're filling your own cup, you're finding the moments of joy, and you give yourself a big pat on the back for doing this thing called adulting, which, as I said, doesn't come with an instruction manual. We're not fully prepared for what one day that will mean and how much responsibility that is. If you like my content, subscribe, follow, share, comment, and we can keep talking more about life and all these things that are a part of our lives and a part of our human experience. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care.